Picture this. Vin Diesel, the tough-as-nails action star, steps into his own restaurant, expecting a quiet night of checking in on his passion project. But what he hears stops him dead in his tracks, a server's muffled sobs echoing from the back. What's going on behind the scenes of this glitzy Hollywood hotspot? Buckle up for a roller coaster of secrets, betrayal, and redemption that'll keep you glued to every word. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more gripping stories that hit you right in the heart, delivered straight to your inbox. Vin Diesel adjusted the brim of his baseball cap, pulling it low over his eyes as he slipped through the side entrance of Diesel's Den, his upscale Los Angeles restaurant that had become the talk of Tinseltown. The place was a love letter to his roots, a blend of sleek modern design with nods to his fast and furious legacy, from vintage car parts adorning the walls to a menu boasting hearty, family-style dishes inspired by his New York upbringing. It was a Wednesday night, the kind of evening where the buzz of Hollywood elite mingled with the clink of wine glasses and the sizzle of gourmet burgers on the grill. Vin hadn't planned on coming tonight. He'd been laying low after wrapping his latest blockbuster, craving a break from the spotlight. But something had pulled him here, a gut feeling, the kind he'd learned to trust after years of dodging paparazzi and navigating the cutthroat world of fame. He moved quietly, his muscular frame blending into the shadows of the dimly lit hallway leading to the kitchen. That's when he heard it, a soft, choked sob coming from the break room. His heart thudded, he stopped cold, every instinct on high alert. The crying was unmistakable now, raw and ragged, the kind that came from someone who'd been holding it together for too long. Vin's first thought was to keep moving. Celebrities didn't get involved in staff drama, that's what managers were for. But the sound tugged at him, stirring memories of his own struggles before the fame, when he was just Mark Sinclair, a kid from the Bronx scraping by. He pushed the door open a crack. Inside, a young woman sat hunched on a folding chair, her server's apron crumpled in her lap, tears streaming down her face. She was maybe 25, with dark hair pulled into a messy bun and a name tag that read, Lila. Vin didn't know her, but he'd seen enough pain in his life to recognize it in her trembling shoulders. He hesitated, torn between stepping in and staying invisible. Before he could decide, another voice cut through the air, a man's, sharp and low, coming from the other side of the room. You think you can just walk away from this, Lila? You owe me. The voice belonged to a guy in a crisp white chef's coat, his arms crossed, looming over her. Vin's eyes narrowed. He recognized him, Tony, the head chef, a hotshot culinary star he'd hired for his flair with fusion cuisine. Tony's tone was laced with menace, and Lila flinched as he leaned closer. I covered for you, didn't I? Kept your little secret from the boss. You think Vin Diesel himself would keep you around if he knew? Vin's blood ran cold. Knew what? He eased the door open wider, staying out of sight. Lila's voice cracked as she replied, I didn't ask you to lie, Tony. I just needed time to figure things out. I'm trying to fix it. Her words were barely audible, drowned by another sob. Tony scoffed, tossing a dish towel onto the table. Fix it? You're in too deep, sweetheart. You either keep playing along, or I tell everyone what you did. Your call. Vin's fists clenched. He'd seen enough. He stepped into the room, letting the door swing shut behind him with a deliberate thud. Both Lila and Tony froze, their heads snapping toward him. Lila's eyes widened, her tears streaked, face paling as she recognized him. Tony's smug expression faltered, replaced by a nervous smirk. Mr. Diesel, he stammered, straightening up. Didn't know you were dropping by tonight. Everything's running smooth, just, sorting out some staff stuff. Vin didn't smile. He crossed his arms, his deep voice steady but laced with steel. Doesn't sound like staff stuff to me, Tony. Sounds like you're threatening one of my people. He glanced at Lila, who was wiping her eyes furiously, trying to pull herself together. You okay? He asked, softer now. She nodded, but her trembling hands betrayed her. Vin turned back to Tony. Start talking. What's going on here? Tony's smirk returned, though it wobbled. Just a misunderstanding, boss. Lila's been slipping up, missing shifts, messing up orders. I was trying to help her out, keep it off your radar. He shot Lila a pointed look, as if daring her to contradict him. Vin's gaze flicked between them. He'd learned to read people long ago, and Tony's smooth talk wasn't adding up. Lila's silence screamed louder than words. Lila, Vin said, keeping his tone calm, whatever's going on, you can tell me. No one's getting fired tonight. Lila's eyes darted to Tony, then back to Vin. She took a shaky breath. It's not what he says, she whispered. I made a mistake. A big one, but he's using it against me. Her voice broke, and she buried her face in her hands. Vin's jaw tightened. He didn't know the details, but he knew blackmail when he saw it. He stepped closer to Tony, his presence filling the room. You're done here for the night, he said. Go home. We'll talk tomorrow. Tony hesitated, then grabbed his jacket and stormed out, muttering under his breath. Vin waited until the door slammed before turning back to Lila. All right, he said, pulling up a chair. Tell me everything. What spilled out over the next hour was a story Vin hadn't expected. Lila wasn't just a server, she was a single mom, raising a 6-year-old daughter while juggling night classes to become a nurse. A few months ago, desperate for cash after her car broke down, she'd taken a loan from a shady lender Tony had connected her with. The interest rates were brutal, and when she couldn't keep up, Tony had stepped in, paying off part of the debt, but at a cost. He demanded she skim tips from the other servers, funneling the cash to him as repayment. When she refused, he'd threatened to expose her to the restaurant's management, and to Vin himself. Worse, he'd hinted at connections to the lender, a guy with a reputation for making problems disappear, permanently. Vin listened, his face unreadable but his mind racing. This wasn't just about Lila. If Tony was extorting her, who else was he manipulating? And what was this lender's hold over his restaurant? Diesel's den was his sanctuary, a place he'd built to feel like family, not a front for some lowlife schemes. He leaned forward, his voice low but firm. You're not alone in this, Lila. I'm gonna fix it, but I need you to trust me. Lila nodded, tears brimming again, but this time with a flicker of hope. Vin stood, his mind already shifting gears. He'd dealt with tough guys before, on screen and off. But this was personal. His restaurant, his people, his name. He wasn't about to let some two-bit chef and a shady loan shark tarnish it. The next day, Vin called in his old friend Dom, a private investigator with a knack for digging up dirt. Dom was a bear of a man, with a shaved head and a no-nonsense attitude that matched Vin's own. Over coffee in the restaurant's empty dining room, Vin laid out the situation. Dom's eyes gleamed with interest. Sounds like Tony's just the tip of the iceberg, he said, scribbling notes. This lender, guy's probably running a bigger game. I'll start with Tony's financials, see where the money's flowing. While Dom worked, Vin kept things quiet, showing up at the restaurant nightly, blending in as a customer to watch Tony. The chef was cocky, schmoozing with VIPs while throwing subtle jabs at Lila whenever she passed. Vin's blood boiled, but he played it cool, waiting for Dom's report. 2 days later, it came. Tony wasn't just extorting Lila, he was skimming profits from the restaurant, funneling them to a guy named Marco, the lender, who had ties to a local crime ring. Worse, Marco had been using Diesel's den as a front to launder money, right under Vin's nose. Vin felt like he'd been punched. His restaurant, his pride, was being used as a pawn. He confronted Tony that night, cornering him in the walk-in freezer where no one could overhear. You've got one chance to come clean, Vin growled. Tony tried to play it off, but Vin's glare shut him up fast. Marco. The money. All of it. Talk. Tony cracked, spilling everything, how Marco had approached him a year ago, offering cash to keep the restaurant protected. Tony had taken the deal, thinking he could control it. But Marco's demands grew, and soon Tony was in too deep, using Lila and others to keep the cash flowing. Vin recorded every word on his phone, his face a mask of controlled fury. When Tony finished, Vin fired him on the spot and sent the recording to Dom, who passed it to a contact at the LAPD. But Marco was another story. Dom's intel pegged him as a ghost, operating through proxies and rarely showing his face. Vin wasn't about to wait for the cops to catch up. He set a trap, using the restaurant as bait. He spread word through the staff that he was hosting a high-profile event, a fake charity gala with big-name celebs. Marco, greedy for a bigger cut, took the bait, showing up with his crew to collect their share of the night's take. What Marco didn't know was that Vin had tipped off the cops, who were waiting in the wings. When Marco and his goons walked into Diesel's den, they found Vin standing at the bar, cool as ever, with Dom and a SWAT team hidden in the back. The takedown was swift. Marco was cuffed before he could blink, his operation exposed. In the aftermath, Vin sat with Lila in the break room, now quiet and peaceful. He'd paid off her debt himself, no strings attached, and offered her a scholarship to finish her nursing degree. Your family now, he told her, echoing the mantra that had carried him through life. Diesel's den was cleaned up, its reputation restored, and Vin made it a point to drop by unannounced, always listening for the heartbeat of his restaurant, and the people who kept it alive.